What is up, you guys? If you guys have followed my TikTok, then you definitely know that I absolutely love the PS Vita. So much so that I own 3 of them and intend on getting more. So, in this video, I just want to talk about some of the features that I absolutely love about this thing. Now, of course, this system came out in America in 2012, so this thing's pretty old. And some of the features by today's standards would be considered standard for any modern console, but at the time of its release was pretty new, or at the very least new in the handheld market. So first off, this thing was pretty powerful. It was way more powerful than its predecessor, the PSP, and more powerful than its competition, the Nintendo 3DS. Also, unlike the 3DS, it had messages for chat as well as a party chat. Unfortunately, these don't work anymore because of how old the system is. However, at the time, no handheld really had them other than phones. Hell, even the Switch doesn't have these features currently. Also, these things had a touchpad on the back for extra button inputs, which may be considered gimmicky. However, some games, such as Tearaway, used this touchpad very well. Unfortunately, not all games that used it well. For example, Uncharted. Unfortunately, most games, if they included it, just shoehorned it in to make it feel just included, and unfortunately, it made it feel awkward. Same with the motion controls. Uncharted, unfortunately, shoehorns those features in, as well as the camera. Speaking of, these things also had cameras, unlike its PSP predecessor, which needed an accessory to have a camera. These things also have a touch screen, so they feel a little more modern. This is not exactly something special, but the previous system, the PSP, didn't have a touch screen. Speaking of screen, the original PS Vita model, the 1000, had an OLED screen. All the way back in 2012, before the Nintendo Switch OLED was even released. This thing looks so good. The color representation is beautiful. Of course, at the time, if you wanted a cheaper model, you could get the 2000, I believe a year later after the original's release, which had an LCD screen, which still looks good. These things were also capable of supporting Bluetooth devices, which its competition, the 3DS, did not allow, and recently the Switch just added that feature, which means with these things, in 2012, you were able to use any Bluetooth headset you wanted. And I believe you could even pair a Bluetooth controller to it. Speaking of controller, you could also use this as a controller for your PS4 using Remote Play, which now phones and PC can do, but at the time, still pretty cool. Of course, this idea was experimented with the PSP, however, the Vita really makes it feel like the fully realized version of that. You were also able to take screenshots of your gameplay. Now, some games blocked this feature, however, it was still cool to be able to take screenshots and use them as your background or lock screen, as you can see with my Injustice screenshot here. Of course, this is a feature that is included in most modern consoles, including the Switch. However, at the time, the PS3, the Xbox 360, the Wii and Wii U, and 3DS couldn't do that. The 3DS couldn't even use custom backgrounds. So it was really cool to be able to use your own gameplay as a background. Also, unlike the 3DS, these things had two sticks from the get-go, which made playing certain games like 3D platformers and shooters much easier. Speaking of shooters, this thing had a really good library too. in my opinion. Having things like Uncharted, Call of Duty, Black Ops Declassified, Killzone Mercenary, Need for Speed, Most Wanted, and more, these things were pretty cool. And if you enjoyed physical games, these things were not region locked. So if you bought a Japanese game that you wanted to try, you can play those Japanese games, which the 3DS was region locked, so you couldn't do that. Another thing that was really cool about this thing, you could play PS1 and PSP games digitally on this thing. Now, it's not the backwards compatibility that the 3DS has, where you can just pop in a DS game and play it. However, it's still really cool to be able to play some PSP games, which was the previous Sony handheld. Not to mention throwing PS1 compatibility in there too. And any game that you bought for the PS1 digitally on the Vita, you got a free PS3 version with it. And of course, being that the PS Vita has some extra controls that the PSP didn't, you were able to program things like the right stick and touchscreen to be able to do certain inputs, which you could also do with PS1 games. Also, I love just how customizable the home screen is. I don't like its UI as much as I do the PS4 or 3DS's. However, the fact that you can customize the background and themes to change the music and icons is pretty cool. Now, the biggest feature that a lot of people talk about nowadays, that hell, most people even buy one of these things for, is the modding scene. Now, unfortunately, I do not own a modded PS Vita yet. However, these things are so easy to mod, you can do it straight from the browser. In my opinion, these things, even vanilla, are really cool. And in case you are unsure of what that means, vanilla means at its base, just the way it comes, I think these things are really cool. However, I would be stupid if I sat there and disagreed with the fact that these things modded show just how good the PS Vita could have been. Now, I am not saying that you definitely need to mod your PS Vita. However, if you are interested in modding, these things are very popular for it, and not only are easy to mod, but have a lot of various things that the modding community has done, even original games for modded Vitas. While unfortunately these things were financial failures for Sony and didn't exactly have the best third party or first party support, I absolutely love the PS Vita. It's a shame that these things wound up being a failure. It would be really cool to see what these devices would have been like if they got the proper first and third party support to make them more popular. However, unfortunately, Sony pretty much abandoned these things. But nonetheless, I think the PS Vita is really cool and really worth owning and trying if you are interested in older devices. Nonetheless, I'm going to continue to support these things and definitely going to get some more. I intend on buying another 1000 model and a special edition. But if you are interested, these things aren't very expensive. Hell, I bought 3 of them to give away to a few friends, which cost me like $120 each. And considering the price of game consoles, even older ones, that's not bad. Especially considering the 3DS has shot up in value, going for around $200 to $300 depending on the model. But those are just some features I love about these things. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, please drop a like, maybe even a follow, and I hope to see you guys later. Bye.